Hi, welcome back to the farm. My name's Roz, also known as Passion Flower, and you'll find me here each week talking about my farming and creative life. I feel like this week has been a lot more about farming than it has about business or creative, but nothing like too over the top, just lots of little bits and pieces. It's starting to really feel like spring, so I got a little bit inspired and I went to Bunnings and I got a couple of pots and some potting mix and some really beautiful coloured flowers, and I've popped those on my deck. So that's quite nice. I do have a bit of a view out my window towards the rubbish bins, which is not terribly aesthetically pleasing. So I thought if I put some flowers in front of that space there, that would brighten the place up a bit and also maybe give the cats something else to watch outside of the window as well. So I've got them sitting in full sun on my deck, and I've just been really careful these last few evenings to bring them in so that they're a bit more sheltered, so that they're not going to get frostbitten while we're still getting these really cold nights. I also did a little bit of work in the sheep paddock. I made a bit of a shelter for when I have one of them in there by themselves. Still going to try and figure out what I'm going to do in terms of making sure that I can slow feed hay in there, because if I put a bale in, they'll just rip it apart. But I don't want something permanent in that paddock because I want to try and get it to grow, and I don't. So I want to cover the ground. Uh, so what I did is I got a tarp and fixed it off on a few different points and then put a star picket into the middle of the paddock so that I could tension it, and that will be the shelter. What I could do, if it's only going to be a little short-term solution, is to use a feeder bag and just put hay into that, and then that can slow feed and I just can replenish that daily, every second day as needed, rather than putting a whole bale into that space, which is hopefully not going to be needed for any length of time. The grass is starting to get a little bit longer out there. I mean, not, longer. We haven't actually had any really rain. We've only had like frosty, wet mornings and then sun. So that is helping to get everything to grow. And the sheep are all happy together in the paddock again. And I just fed them some more grain. I'll probably put a bale of hay, fresh one, in for them this weekend if I can. Adam is doing some work today on the tractor with the bucket on the front. So when he's done with that work, then he can switch it over to put the hay forks on and move a bale in for me. There was also a very, very wonky post in the sheep paddock. I walked past and it was literally like this. It looked like it had broken, or, was at least coming out of the ground a little bit, and the top staple had popped, so it wasn't attached to the wire at all. So it was just like flopping down. They still weren't able to get out, but it was not looking all that great. And then it was starting to push the others. I think it's pretty much from Hurley sticking his neck out through and pushing so hard that it puts a lot of pressure on, and it just made it, bend quite a lot. So we got a star picket and popped it in behind, bashed that down quite deep, and then screwed it to the post. Did it with the next one down as well, just to make sure that we were strengthening that whole area, and then retightened up the wires. So now it is back being reasonably good again for a little while until they push on somewhere else. The other farm thing has been dealing with 4 new chickens. Every time we get new chooks, we have to train them on how to get in and out of the chook house, because we have an automatic door, which at night closes up. It's open for a certain amount of daylight and then it closes. And all of our regular chooks know how to do that, and they just are in and go to sleep before the door closes. But these 4 manage to get themselves out in the morning, but they're not going back in at night. They're finding places randomly in the chook area to go to sleep rather than going inside. So what we have to do is find them after it gets dark, and one by one take them and pop them back on their perch. And the first few nights we had this extra area with a temporary electric fence further out, and those chickens, one of them managed to get out, I think kind of panicked at the end of the day and didn't know what to do, and ended up finding a tree near the house. And then in the morning, it was just pecking around in my garden. So before I was going to work, I was having to round up this chook and lift it up and back into the secure area. So they're not learning all that quickly, these four. They have been sitting in our old rodeo that broke down when we were doing something in the chook paddock, and now it just stays there as part of the shelter for the chickens throughout the day. And that has been their evening place of choice the last week. So we have been having to get into this vehicle in the dark and pick them up one by one and put them back on their roost. So hopefully they will start to learn, because it's not a great job to have to do every night to double check that they are in and safe. It's much easier when they can all just take care of that themselves. First, what I'm wearing this week, this is the Pimpless shawl. It's a little like shawlette, and I've got another one, so I've knit two. So I'll show you the second one so you can see the shape. It is great as a one skein project. I don't even remember what this skein was, but it was something that I bought quite a long time ago, and it was just like really pretty colors. So perfect for a one skein project, because what you do is you weigh your ball at the start. You start at one end and increase out until you've used half the ball, and then you just start decreasing, not increasing. Then you decrease down until you get back down to where you started from. So it you can use like literally every single little bit. So this is in the Island Life colorway, one of my colorways. So I've done this one, and I've also done this one here. So they're a nice little short version, like nice long tail that you can like really pull around so it doesn't go anywhere once you have it around your neck. So yeah. All right, I'm going to start with acquisitions. So I went to Bunnings and I bought flowers, and Spotlight happened to be across the road. So I popped in to Spotlight as well. The first thing I got was from Bunnings, not from Spotlight, but it was crafting related. So I got these, sorry for the glare, floor mats. So they came in packs of 4. So I got 2 packets of these for blocking. Whoops. And I did have 4 green ones that I've had for a really, really long time. And I was finding that they were getting a little bit powdery. I think they've been out in the sun too many times and too much moisture through them. And every time I started to block something, I'd end up with green all over my hand. And it was starting to get on my projects. So they've gone in the bin, and I now have 8 brand new ones, which is quite exciting, especially now. If I'm doing bigger projects, it's much easier to have 8 rather than the 4, because you can configure it in better ways to be able to make sure that you can fit everything on to the blocking boards without having to have it all sticking off the edge. Then I went to Spotlight, and I said last week that I was going to be buying some yarn for some baby projects. So I picked up a whole lot of this 4 Seasons Pure Merino 8 ply, which is a superwash. It is 68 meters in each 50-gram ball. So I got this pomegranate colorway. I got 3 of those. I got 4 in, what color is this one? In hydrangea. It's coming out a bit brighter on the screen than it is in person. It's a bit better with the darker together. So 5 of those, and 1 of the bottle melange. Melange? I should always research this stuff before I start speaking, seriously. Green. It's a green. So my plan is to make something. I don't think she watches, so I might share what I'm going to make. Give me a second. I'm pretty sure she doesn't watch, so I will share it here, but you know who you are, so if you are watching, turn away. With the light purple, I'm going to make this little sleeping bag, and then do the trims in the darker color. I've made this a couple of times before, and the parents have said that they really appreciated the item and it was really good for popping the baby into bed. I didn't sew up the bottom like it says to in the pattern. I left that open, so then it's easier for nappy changes. So I'm going to make that. I don't think I will make the matching mittens and beanie, and instead of buttons I will probably just put press studs in. And then I think I will make some booties and a different kind of beanie, probably the aviatrix, which is like a rounded sort of like skull cap kind of beanie for kids that you can tie under their chin, and it's got quite a lot of stretch in it, so it grows with them for a little while. So I think that's what I'll end up making. I'll see how I go once I get underway and what I get inspired to do once I start. Things can always change, but that's my plan with that yarn. In terms of crafting, I've actually been reasonably monogamous and quiet this week. Doesn't feel like anywhere near as much production as the last few weeks. I'm still working on my Melanie jumper, which is out of the Tencel Merino from Fiberific in a bright pink, and the Paul Merino wool from Leasom. And I'm holding those two together. I say it's a Melanie pattern, and I have done the folded hem on the neckline, and I'm using a Bendigo Woolen Mills on the inside for that, just because I wasn't sure if I was going to have enough yarn. And I have knit down to where I think I'm going to fold it up, and just put that on hold. And I've split the balls for the sleeves into two, and I'm knitting down on the first sleeve now. And I think, so I've got about this much left to knit on the first sleeve, and I think, is this the one that's connected? No. And I can show you how much I have left of each, and with that much sleeve done, I've still got this much of sleeve number 1 yarn. So I should have plenty to be able to do the full length sleeves and do the fold over with this yarn, which I'm really quite happy about. I don't mind having the neck and the underneath of the body in the contrast, but I think it'd be nice to have the sleeves in this, because when you pull it up and you sort of move them around, you're more likely to see some of that inside. If I end up having enough, I will go back and pull the body out as well and put more of that in as part of the fold over. Now, I had done quite a lot more on the body in the main color, and so I just decided to just follow the pattern, and I did it to the length that it said, and then started to do what should have been for the fold over, and it seemed quite long. And then I also realized that I hadn't changed to smaller needles to do the bit that's supposed to fold. And I was like, I don't know if it's going to make a difference. I've never done a folded hem before, except for on this neck, which I did do the smaller needles for. So I ripped it back. I just put a needle through and held all the stitches, and then just ripped back quite a way and reknit a couple of rows in the larger needle, switched to the smaller needle for a little bit, and now I've tried it on and I think it's at the right length. But as I said, I'm going to wait and do the end at the very, very end once I've got the full sleeves on, because I feel like sometimes sleeves, even though this is a drop shoulder, so you're already out here, when you put the sleeves in, it can really lift the body of the jumper up. So I'm going to wait until both sleeves are done before I make a final judgment call on the body length. I'm still really enjoying this, and the fabric is so soft and so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to finishing it and wearing it. But is it just me, or does the first sleeve always take forever? I just feel like it takes so long. Um, and I feel like I've got to be really meticulous about keeping track of where I do my decreases and how many rows I'm doing so that I can get the second sleeve to match up. Maybe I should have done them two at a time, but then that feels like it takes like 4 or 5 times as long. So, and it's much harder to try on when you've got two at a time sleeves going, whereas this way I can get this one on a holder and like literally put the whole jumper on and see how it goes. So I am looking forward to getting this first sleeve done so that then I know what I'm doing for the second one, and hopefully it can zoom along. Oh, I've just looked in this bag and it totally reminded me that I did something else this week as well before I get on to my other work in progress. I talked last week about that I was going to rip this project out. This is the Pescadero by Amy Herzog, and this is the back that was completely done, bound off and everything, and even blocked. And I have decided at this point to not rip out the back. I'm just going to leave that, and I'll probably rip it out later. But I have ripped out the front, which I was about halfway through, and I'm going to save that yarn and knit another project. I think it will be the Wattle by Vera Maku, which I probably won't start until after I've finished this. So, and I think it will take all of the yarn, but I figured seeing this is bound off, I could probably just wait until I need to use this and just knit from this, and just deal with the crinkliness in the blocking, rather than pre pulling it out, whereas the other was still in progress and like on the needles, so I could just wind it back on to the ball that it was currently on. So yeah, forgot to tell you about that. And then a new whip, which I spoke about last week when I was swatching for it, is the Winter Song. So I swatched and all of the numbers were all good, and I have started, but only just started. I decided when I realized that I'd knit the body way too long, it needed to go in the naughty corner for that afternoon. So I just put it aside and went, screw it, I'm just going to cast on this new project instead. So I literally have done maybe like, I think it's 3 or 4 rows. So I've done the cast on. Sorry, there's stuff everywhere. I've got two strands attached because I am alternating skeins. So what I did so that I would use almost every single piece of yarn is that I did a long tail cast on, but casting on from both balls. And then I'm just alternating every round. Um, I did twist it the first time that I joined it in the round, and I had to undo it all and do it again, which was actually a good thing because I realized that I'd cast on, the size was way too big. So I cast on a smaller size. And I've got markers for each of the lace repeats. You can see that I've started to do some of the lace because it's sort of got this like little scalloped edges, which is what the bottom of the hem has. Um, so yeah, I've got my each repeat in between a marker so I don't lose track, as well as a different one for halfway. So I literally only worked on that for one afternoon while I was annoyed with my other project, and this has just been sitting in the bag for the rest of the week. So once I finish the Melanie, then I will get back to working on this one. But yeah, I think the lace will be fun because it's only a little bit of lace. I think it's like only 15 rows of lace at the bottom, and then you basically just knit in the round until you get up to after you've split for the sleeves, and then it's a little bit of lace at the top on just the front, I think, maybe the back. I'm not sure. Pattern reading. And it's all charted, and so it's a lot of pages in this pattern, but literally there's only one page chart for each size. So you only have to print out the one page of the chart. So that makes it nice and easy. And it has been, even though I've only just started, it has been easy to follow so far. So I'm looking forward to continuing on that one. Well, that's it for another week. Thanks for spending some time with me. If you enjoy these videos, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I look forward to seeing you next week on the farm. Bye.